Good morning. So, we'll just start with these questions. These are just direct conversion. I'll just show you the answer for 5.1 because I think all we have to do is use our formulas and you can check that out, right? And this is our 5.2. In our 5.2, calculate the annual effective rate of discount that is equivalent the rate of interest of 4% per annum convertible monthly. So they have given us I12. We have to find D. So from I12, we'll first find I, and then from I, we'll be finding D. Now, in the government bond example, N is equals to 6 months and I is equals to 5%. How did we consider? However, we did not consider, and while calculating present value from future value, rupees 100, why were we calculating only for 1 month? I'm not sure about the second part, please, because I don't remember exactly, but I understand N is equal to 6 months. You might be asking that I just said 5%, this was 5% effective for 6 months. Okay, so whenever they talk about government bonds, they will always give you an effective rate of discount. So when I say 5%, they are talking about effective rate of discount for 6 months if the government bond is of 6 months. So they'll say 6 months bond, 5% rate of discount. So that is why we said we'll be investing 95 rupees to get 100 rupees at the end of 6 months. And while calculating present value from future value, why were we calculating only for 1 month? We are not calculating only for 1 month. It is just effective for 6 months. So only one time period, because they want it easier for you to calculate. That is why they will always give you effective rate for whatever time period our whole bond is. Now, whenever we are calculating, we take at least 6 significant numbers. That means if my percentage is 5.7395947995%, something like this. For calculation, I will take 0.00573,959. This becomes my 6 significant numbers. We should be using 6 significant numbers. Now in 5.2, if you see, they have said equivalent rate. They have not said it is effective rate. Okay, we have effective rate of discount, annual effective rate of discount, that is D. And here they have asked us the rate of interest. Now this is nominal because see here we have 4% per annum convertible monthly. So they have given represented it in per annum basis. So whenever the value is represented in per annum, that becomes a nominal rate when it is convertible in some other form. Okay, so if they wanted to write I12 by 12, they would have written, so if I said they wanted to write I12 by 12, they would have said two things. First, they would have said 4% per month. This would mean I12 by 12, or they would have said 4% converted monthly. Again, there is no per annum here, right? You can see there is no per annum here. When they write in such a way where they're not writing per annum, then we will consider it to be effective rate monthly. Okay, so we have to make sure that we understand this very precisely, because this is the main mistake that students do. Okay, so we have to just look for that per annum basis whenever we are trying to figure out whether it is nominal rate or whether it is effective rate. So we'll do a few more sums. I'll not do it here. We'll do hmm. Let's do this. The 5 rupees 500 is invested in an account that pays interest equivalent to a nominal discount rate of 8% per annum, convertible half yearly. Calculate the accumulated amount in the account after 3 years. They are saying that our rate of interest is D, payable half yearly, 8% per annum. Our present value is 500 and our N is 3 years. So either we can convert this into D and then solve it. If you're converting it into D, then you can convert it into I to find your future value, right? So one way would be, I would convert this into D. D would be 1 minus D2 by 2, the whole square. Then we'll convert this D into I. So I'll say I is equals to a D upon 1 minus D. Okay. And then we can use our formula. We'll say future value must be equal to present value into 1 plus I raised to 3. We'll say 500 into 1 plus, I'll use the previous answer, raised to 3. I'll have 638.767. Now, whenever we are writing our final answer that is in currency, we know that the maximum we would go for 2 decimal points. So that is why I give 3 decimal points, so I don't have to think about rounding it off. Okay. So our answer is expected in at 2 decimal points. We will give it in 3 decimal points. Now what else we could have done? We could have directly used this D2. D2 is 8%. I'll say my D2 by 2, that would be effective rate per half year, becomes 4%. Our N becomes 3 years is nothing but 6 half years. We can use this directly. We'll say future value is equals to present value into, I'll say accumulation factor 0 to 3 years. So therefore our future value will be equal to present value divided by our discounting factor. We know discounting factor is nothing but equal to our 1 minus d raised to 3, and we can replace our 1 minus d with 1 minus dp by p, the whole raised to p. We can replace it with this. So we'll say our present value upon 1 minus d2 by 2, the whole raised to 2 into 3. So that becomes our 6 half years. So I'll have 500 divided by 1 minus 0.04 bracket close raised to 6. So we should have exactly the same answer. 638, 638.767, and we got exactly the same answer because these are equivalent rates. Equivalent rates should give you the same answers. Now what about the second part? Second part says the payment of rupees 100 is due in 5 years time. Calculate the present value of this payment using a discount rate of 9% per annum convertible monthly. So discount rate D, 9% per annum convertible monthly. So again this is nominal rate payable monthly, 9%. So payment of 800 is due in 5 years time. So our future value is equals to 800. N becomes 5 years. Again, to calculate the present value, what you can do is you can convert this into D. If we convert this into D, we'll have 1 minus D12 by 12, the whole raised to 12. And then we know our present value must be equal to our future value into discounting factor. So whenever we are discounting, we use discounting factor. We multiply our discounting factor, and that will just give me my 800 into 1 minus d raised to 5. I just have to multiply my discounting factor whenever I am discounting. Is it practically possible that D12 will be greater than 12 in any cases? Yes. There is no restriction in what that value might be. Okay, so if D12 is greater than 12, that just means monthly rate of interest is more than 1%. That can happen. We can have 2%, 5%, 10%. So our let's say if I have 5%, if my D12 by 12 is 5%, that means my D12 will just be 60%. That is practically a little bit problematic, but it can be possible. Okay, so usually the maximum rate of interest that you will find anywhere is around 40% practically. Okay, very rarely that also happens, so but still 40% is viable. Maybe 45% would be viable, not more than that. But theoretically we can get any value, we can get more than 100% as well. Okay, but obviously they want to keep it a little bit closer to practical realities, so that is why we find only a few questions that goes as high as 50%. Okay, so even if D12 is more than 12 does not really matter. It can be less than 12 as well. We see less than 12 a lot. Okay, does not matter. There's no restriction. It's just never going to be negative. We are not going to see any rate of interest that would be negative. Rate of interest, rate of discount, or any other rates that we are going to see in future. Okay, so we had our 800 into 1 minus, I will use answer again. I will be using my previous answer, raised to 5. So we are getting 509.238. Again, I have another method. I can directly use D12. I can say my present value will be equal to my future value into 1 minus D12 by 12 raised to 12 into 5. So I'm just replacing 1 minus d with 1 minus d12 by 12 raised to 12, or 1 minus dp by p raised to p. D12 was 9%, right? So we should get the same answer. Okay, now you should take this into account. We can use discounting factor to accumulate, and we can use accumulation factor for discounting as well. Yeah, I'll explain that in a minute. Okay, so whenever we have accumulation factor, or I'll just write accumulation factor as a0 comma n, and we are using that for accumulation, then we will multiply it. When we have discounting factor and we are using it for discounting, then we will multiply it. But if we are using accumulation factor for discounting, we will divide it. If we are using discounting factor for accumulating, we will divide it. So whenever we talk about accumulation, we will be talking about present value is given and we need to find future value. So we are trying to find future value from present value. And discounting, we will say future value is given and we are trying to find present value. It's just a small concept, but we might get confused in the beginning. Okay, when are we dividing, when are we multiplying, it gets a little bit confusing. So just remember this. Okay, so whenever we are going from future value to present value, we are discounting because we are reducing the value. And if we have discounting factor, we should directly multiply. But if we have accumulation factor, we should divide. So whatever is given, future value is given, and we will be multiplying discounting factor to it or dividing accumulation factor to it. So this is a small concept you should always remember. Now let's talk about how do we get 1 minus d is equals to 1 minus dp by p whole raised to p. This is what we'll talk about. Now we did this for our rate of interest yesterday. Here we'll take the same type of example. Let's say we have quarterly interest. Now let's say I have 100 rupees invested here. My rate of discount, that is D12 by D12 D4 by 4 is, let's say, 2%. D4 by 4 is 2%. That means it becomes effective per quarter. It becomes effective per quarter. If that is the case, in one quarter, what would be my value? So I will have to discount for one quarter. So that would be just 100 into 1 minus D4 by 4. That becomes 98. Then how much will it be after one more quarter? So I'll have 98 into 1 minus D4 by 4, because again we are considering compound. We will not have simple. So we'll have 98 into 0.98, 96.04. Then again, if I discount for one quarter, 96.04, discounting 1 minus D4 by 4, and when we discount it one more times, we'll have 92.236816. This is what we are getting. So that means if I invest 92.236816 at time 0, I should get 100 rupees at time 1. So I can say this 100 rupees, if I discount it for 4 quarters, so D4 by 4 raised to 4, I discounted it for 4 quarters, gave me 92.236816. And also if I discount it for 1 year with an equivalent rate, I should get the same value. So then these two become equivalent rates. So then we will compare and we'll say our 1 minus d must be equal to 1 minus d4 by 4 raised to 4, and for general we'll say 1 minus d is equals to 1 minus dp by p the whole raised to p. And using this we'll make our formulas for d and dp that I gave you yesterday. Okay, so for our d it was just 1 minus of 1 minus dp by p whole raised to p, and for dp we had 1 minus of 1 minus d the whole raised to 1 by p into p. Okay, so these were our formulas that I gave you yesterday that comes from this. Now we'll talk about one more thing, that is force of interest. अच्छा, before we talk about force of interest, अच्छा ठीक है, before we talk about force of interest, we'll talk about we'll convert a few values. Let's say I is equals to 10%. I think I gave you this as homework. I wanted d, then I wanted I2, I4, I12, I52, I365. I don't think I gave you all of these values, but let's calculate. Then we'll be calculating d, then we'll calculate d2, d4, d12, d52, and d365. So when I is 10%, a d would be I upon 1 plus I. So that becomes 9.09091%. Then I'll calculate all this I2, I4. So for I2 we'll have 2 into bracket open, we'll have 1.1, that is our 1 plus I raised to 1 by 2, raised to 1 by 2 minus 1. I will write this in percentage form. So I'll have 9.761769. So I'll just write it as 77%. Start doing it. I'll be back in 1 minute. Then next we'll have 4 into 1.1 raised to 1 divided by 4 minus 1. You don't have to worry too much about the last digit, because we have taken so many digits. Even if I write this as 7 or 6, it will not make much difference in our final answer. Okay, so you don't have to worry too much whether we rounded it off or whether we did not round it off. Let's calculate our d's. So d2. Now one of the uh, features of our calculator is we can store a value. Now how do we store a value? Like here I had d, I will write our 0.1 divided by 1.1, that became our d. Now to store this value, what we do is we use shift, and you can see above this RCL we have an STO written in yellow. So anything written in yellow can be accessed by the shift button. So if I press shift and then I press this RCL button, you will see on the top I have STO written. Same thing happens in our physical calculator. Okay, so I have STO written here in the top. That means we are ready to store. Now we'll be storing the values. We'll be storing the values in this A, B, C, D, E, or F. These are the different places we can store our value. So for that, let's say we are storing it in A. I will just press this A button, and you can see that it has stored the value in A. Okay, so it has stored the value in A, right? Now I'll press AC, and whenever I need to use it, anything here in purple, and in actuality our calculator, you will see that is in red. Here they have given it in purple, our calculator it is in red. All I have to do is press alpha and then press that button. So I'll get alpha A, and if I say equal to, and you can see I have the same value. So what I have to do is whenever I am using it, instead of using the same value again and again, I will use just alpha. Oh, sorry, I will just use A. I365 answer is 6.5. Let me just check my equation. Where's my 365 into 1.1 raised to 1 divided by 365 minus 1. Now we are getting this. Just check your calculation. Okay, so I'll talk about storing again. Okay, so we wanted to store our D so that we can use D again and again in this. When our I was 10%, it was easy. But while writing this D, we will have to write 9.09091 every single time. That becomes too much for us. Okay, so that is why what we are going to do is we are going to store that value. So we had 1 divided by 1.1. Okay, so we got this value. Okay, no, I did something wrong. Oh, sorry, not 1 divided by, it is 0.1 divided by 1.1. So I am getting this value. I need to store it so that I can use it again and again. So for storing, we use STO, that is written in yellow here. You can see that STO is written in yellow here. Above RCL, above 7, you will see an RCL button. So that is nothing but store. But to access anything written in yellow, we'll press shift button. As soon as I press shift and press RCL, you will see that there is a STO written in the top of our calculator. Can you see that STO here? Okay, so that STO says that we are ready to store this value. Where do we want to store it? We can store it only in this A, B, C, D, E, and F. Written in purple here and written in red in your actual calculator. Okay, you can see that here. So I will be storing it in A. So I will press the button above RCL. As soon as I press it, it says that value has been stored in A. You can see here, it shows the value stored in A. Then I'll press AC. Now work of my storing is over. Now whenever I want to use this value, all I have to do is press alpha and then press that button again to get my A. I'm getting A, and if I press equal to, I get this value. So instead of writing this value again and again, I will be using the stored value, that is A. Okay. So here our D2 formula is going to be 2 times 1 minus D raised to 1 by 2. So this is our formula for D2. So we'll use that formula here. How would we make it? We'll say 2 into our 1 minus, then another bracket. We'll have 1 minus, and instead of D, we'll be using alpha A, right? Because we have stored the value in A, bracket close, raised to, we have 1 divided by 2, and then bracket close. And when we press equal to, we get our value. Then same thing with 4. So we'll have 4 into 1 minus 1 minus. For D, we will be using A again. So alpha A. Whenever we need to use A, we'll press alpha and then we'll press that A button. Now I can use my previous equations to edit and rewrite it. Now you will have your equations with you. You will have your equations with you till you do not press on button or off button. If you off your calculator or just press your on button, it will refresh everything and will not have your previous equations. If you press AC, it is not a problem and you will still have your equations. So for that, you will press up arrow key and you will see all the equations up to, I think, 10 equations. So it stores up to 10 equations. Let's say I want to reuse this equation. I can go here, but I want to edit it. Instead of 2, now I want 52. So what I will do is I'll press my side arrow keys. You can see as I press my side arrow keys, I get my cursor back. So instead of 2, I want 52. And I'll go and I'll have 1 divided by 52 here. So I get my equation and I get 9.5. 52229%. Then 365, again I will edit this. I can just press side arrow because I already have this equation here. I will delete this. I'll say 365 and go here, delete this. I will say 365. That ways I'm saving a lot of time if I have very long equations, just by editing those equations. So you can see the relationship here. First of all of the nominal values, these are all annual values. We have effective annual, these two are effective annual, and others are nominal values. Or nominal is always in annual. Okay, so all of them are nearly the same value. You don't have one as 10%, the other as 5%. It is nearly 10%. See, I is 10%, these are all nearly 10%. D is 9%, this is nearly 9%. Okay, or you can say these are all nearly 10% values. The lowest being D. D will always be the lowest, and you can see how the trend is going. Our I is greater than our I2, greater than I4, greater than I12, greater than, I will skip I52, I'll just write I365. I365. And then this is greater than our D365, greater than D52, or I'll just write D12, and so on till last will be our D. You can see this trend. This will be true for any rate of interest or any value. This will be always true. Okay. So what does this say? Because if I am giving you interest more than once, I need less rate of interest to get the same amount. Okay, so to get the same amount, I want less rate of interest if I am giving you interest more than once a year. But that is exactly opposite when we talk about D, because I'm discounting more. If I'm giving you more discount in 1 year, more than once, that means I'm discounting more. If I'm discounting more, I will get, I will require more rate of discount to discount more. So that is why D2 is more than D. I will require more rate of discount to get the same answer. So even if you are getting confused right now, don't worry. This is not very much important. It's just a concept that we should have some clarity about. So go home, try this again with any rate of interest, and you will get the same pattern. Okay. Now here, just look at these two values and look at these two values. I would say this is nothing but giving rate of interest weekly. When would we use it? Now we might have weekly wages in factories, in construction, in so many different places. We do have weekly wages, and again we might have daily wages as well. Okay, so daily wages. So in these two cases, we might use interest rate that is convertible weekly or interest rate that is convertible daily, right? In these two cases, we'll be using these three. Same thing in these two cases, we'll be using these two, right? So whenever I need to find those values, let's say my construction is going to go for 5 years. 5 years weekly, I will have how many payments? I will have 5 into weekly payments. I will have 260 payments. That is a lot of payments. And by, if I have, let's say, daily payments 365, I have 1825 payments. So I will have to find discounting of each and every value or accumulation of each and every value separately and then add them up. That becomes too many calculations. So what happens is when we go more and more, let's say closer smaller time periods, the rate of interest is not much different. You can see the rate of interest here, the rate of interest here is not much different. That means they will give us similar value. The difference between those values will be very, very, very small. And if we get difference in let's say 0.0001 rupee, that does not make any difference. Even 0.01 rupee will not make any difference to us. Even 0.5 rupees will not make much difference to us. So here we are spending too much time in calculation, and the difference that we will be getting would be too small, right? So whenever we have daily conversion, that would be I365 or D365, what we prefer is we should make our conversion a little bit less, and we can make it weekly. Weekly, I will have I52 or D52. So this will have a little bit less calculation, but it is still much more. If I have something, or my factory is running for past 20 years, I need to figure out the values for 20 years. My weekly values will be how much? I will have 1040 values. For 25 years, for 30 years, these are very common things. Okay, it becomes very large calculations. So again, weekly is a little bit better than daily, but it is still a lot of calculations. So instead of that, what we do is we introduce something called as force of interest to make our calculations easier. Force of interest is represented as delta. I hope everybody knows delta. This is how we write delta. However you want to write it, just write an S and then just complete the just join your curve. It becomes our delta. Okay, in actuality it looks something like this. This is small delta, capital delta is written like this, a triangle, but we'll be using small delta only, not the capital delta. So force of interest. In force of interest, we do not, when we do not want to do such long calculations, we try to make it such that we say we are giving interest every single moment. So here in force of interest, we say interest given every moment. Instead of daily, instead of weekly, we are saying every moment. Now, what does that actually mean? In practicality, I cannot give you interest in every single moment, because how many moments do we have in 1 year? We have infinite moments in 1 year. How many moments do we have in 1 month? We have infinite moments in 1 month. How many moments do we have in 1 day? We have infinite moments in 1 day. How many moments do we have in 1 second? We have infinite moments in 1 second. So a moment is nothing but the smallest possible time values. It's a concept. It is not in actuality a physical quantity, because we cannot measure such a small quantity. Even if you take 10 thousandths of a second, or let's say a millisecond, or whatever unit that might be, let's say a millisecond, you will have infinite moments in 1 millisecond. Even if you take a microsecond, that would be 10 raised to minus 6 of a second, you will have infinite moments in that. So between any two time period, you will have infinite moments. That is again a conceptual thing. We in physically, I cannot pay you every single moment, but conceptually we can. So here what we are saying is, if I say my P is infinity, my IP becomes delta. We do not have limit in our course, so you don't have to worry about how do we get that. Okay, this is just a concept. So we are saying that limits if my p is tending towards infinity, that means if p is reaching infinity, my ip will be reaching delta. Okay, and similarly, this becomes e raised to delta. So our 1 plus I is equals to e raised to delta. This is how we write it. Delta is again represented in per annum basis, and only in per annum basis. We'll have no other units. Delta will always be given in per annum basis. So if I have accumulation factor going from 0 to n, I will have 1 plus I raised to n. That should be equal to e raised to delta n. If I have discounting factor 0 to n, that would be 1 minus d raised to n, or we would say we'll have 1 plus I raised to, I can say minus n, reciprocal is nothing but raised to minus. I will have that equal to e raised to minus delta n. So force of interest was introduced because we wanted a term for very frequent rate of interest. So very frequent rate of interest, that was daily or weekly. That was the practical one. We usually do not go less than daily. I would not say I am giving you interest every single second or every single hour or every single half day. No. Okay. So daily and weekly is the smallest that we go. But because there were a lot of calculations, what we did was we converted into every single moment, because the calculation became a little bit easier. Okay. Instead of writing 1 plus ip by p raised to p, we prefer writing e raised to delta. Okay, and addition here actually becomes integration. We'll see that later on. Okay, so let's say I need to find for I is equals to 10%, what is my delta. So if you want to find delta, delta would be, I will take my log on both sides, and so this was okay, my mistake. This should be vn, not v0 comma n. Okay, so delta would be log of 1 plus I. Now log in our course, whenever they write log, it means log to the base e. Log to the base e is nothing but natural log, that is ln. Okay, ln is nothing but natural log, that is log to the base e. Now I always write ln even though our book writes log. That is mainly because our calculator has two different logs. Here log log is nothing but log to the base 10, and ln is nothing but log to the base e. So at the beginning what used to happen is I used to press log log, that is log to the base 10, because I used to write log. Okay, so subconsciously I used to press this log, but in actuality I should be pressing this log, right? That is log to the base e, because by default this is nothing but log to the base e. So that is why I started writing ln instead of log. So if you write log, not a big problem. If you see log, that is log to the base e. If you see ln, that is log to the base e. And also I can do that conversion here as well, and I'll get minus log 1 minus d. So this becomes our formula, this, and I can say 1 minus d will be equal to e raised to minus delta this. So first of all, if I have I is equals to 10%, what will be our delta? It will just be ln 1 plus 0.1, 1 plus I, and that becomes 0.0953, or I will write it in percentage, so I will have 9.53101%. Now you can see 9.531 versus 9.532 here, 9.539 here, and 9.5322 here, and 9.529 here. In all of these cases, the difference is not much. And if we have a lot of payments for a very long time, then the difference will be negligible. Okay, so that is why we can convert them into delta. Now we'll do that only if they ask us. If they ask you to calculate I365 and you give them answer as delta, they will give you wrong, because they asked you I365. They did not ask you to find delta. So we will not be just using delta anywhere we can find, but we'll be using delta when they ask us. I gave you a concept why delta was created. Okay, so even though in future, whenever you are using daily payments or whenever you are using क्या बोलते weekly payments, you will always assume it to be delta. That means continuous payments. Okay, but here you will not directly assume it. So next I'll give you just an example. I'll just take an example from here. I think they will just use the same example, and yeah, 500 is invested in an account that pays a force of interest of 8%. So now our delta is equals to 8%. Calculate the accumulated amount after 3 years. So we'll have present value as 500 and n as 3 years. So delta is always in per annum basis. So future value will be nothing but our 500 into e raised to delta into n. So e raised to delta n. So 5%. So it will be written again as 0.08. So 500 into e. You will see just above our ln there is e, and box, e raised to box is written in our calculator. That is how we'll be using. So shift ln will give me e box, e raised to 0.08 into 3 years. This, and I get 365.624. You can definitely convert it into I and then calculate like they have done here. You can see the solution. You can definitely do it, or you can directly use this. This would be much easier. So accordingly, my accumulation factor 0 comma n, that was 1 plus I whole raised to n, was also equal to 1 by my discounting factor was also equal to, I will say, 1 minus d raised to minus n is also equal to e raised to delta n is also equal to 1 plus ip by p the whole raised to pn, also equal to 1 minus dp by p the whole raised to minus pn. And we also write it in terms of small v. So I'll have small v raised to minus n. This one equation has all the conversions. So you can convert from 1 plus I directly to dp if you want to, using this conversion. But I would not suggest it right now. Later on, when you have practiced it enough, then you can, but now definitely not. So you should write this as a formula, because all of the conversions from this to this, from this to this, everything is written here. You just have to not make any mathematical mistakes here. I'll give you another way of using this as a let's say in another form, and we write it as a table, all the conversions. Or I'll just show you that table. That would be easier rather than writing the whole table. Although I would ask you to write that yourself. You can see the values here. Now they have written in terms of and value of. So we have value of delta, in terms of delta nothing, but value of delta in terms of I, that would be ln1 plus I. We just found that. Value of delta in terms of d is minus ln1 minus d. We use that also. Then value of delta in terms of v, because our 1 minus d is equals to v was nothing but discounting factor for 1 year. So that is why we just replace that and we'll get minus ln v. Okay, so this table is also very much important. You should write this table, because we have all the conversions in other factors. We have I in terms of delta, we have I in terms of v, I in terms of d, we have v in terms of these three, we have d in terms of the other three. So we use this a lot. So that is why you should have this handy with you, this table. So today we have learned one more relationship, that is force of interest. Just give me 1 minute. So we have learned force of interest today. Any doubt in this? Why do we use force of interest, and how do we use force of interest? Now there is one more concept that is left in this chapter, that is force of interest as a function of time. We say delta t. So our delta as a function of time, so we'll write it as delta t. So I'll take an example. Now, why would we have force of interest as a function of time? Now, let's take an example. If I say that I have started a business and you are investing in my business. Now, because it is the starting of the business, I will not be earning a lot of money at the beginning, but I will be earning more money in a few years. So rather than giving you a constant rate of interest on the investment that you did, I would say I will give you increasing rate of interest. So I would say that first year at time 0, that means today I will give you, let's say, 5%. I will have 0.05, but as the time increases, I will increase your payment by 1% each year. So I will say 0.01 t. So in time 1 it becomes 6%, in time 2 it becomes 7%, in time 3 it becomes 8%, right? So as we increase the time, our rate of interest or our force of interest also increases. Okay, so because I do not earn a lot of money today, but I will be earning more money in the future. Let's say this goes on for only from time 0 to time, let's say 5. Okay, so you are investing for 5 years. So time 0 you are going to get 5%, time 1 you will going to get 1%. But between that, when I'm saying I'm half a year, 0.5 times 0.5, you are actually going to get 0.055. That means 5.5%. Okay, at any given point in time, it is continuously changing. It is a function of time. Now we use that concept because we want it to be easier to calculate, because if we make it into a function, it is easier to calculate by using integration. Okay, so if we have function of time, our accumulation factor will actually be our e raised to integration of delta t dt. Now instead of delta t dt, I always write, I convert it into delta s ds, because we will be using t for other things in future. So that is why here we convert it into s. Okay, so we'll directly write delta s ds. So instead of t, we are directly writing s. I wrote t here because in the question they will always write t, but while solving we'll convert it into s. And from whatever time we are going, so let's say from 0 to 5, so we'll be going from 0 to 5. This becomes our accumulation factor. So let's say accumulation factor from 0 to 5. If let's say you invested at time 2 and you are going till time 5, accumulation factor from time 2 to time 5 must be e raised to integration 2 to 5 delta s ds. If we want to discount from time 5 to time 0, we'll say discounting factor for 5 years. That would be our e raised to minus of integration 0 to 5 delta s ds. If we want to discount from time 5 to time 2, I cannot write it this way. I will write 1 by accumulation factor 2 by 5. That would be nothing but e raised to minus time 2 to 5 delta s ds. So if let's say you invested 10,000 rupees in my business, where I'm giving you force of interest at this particular rate. You invested at time 0 and we want to find future value at time 5. So we'll say our present value must be equal to, our future value must be equal to 10,000 into our accumulation factor from 0 to 5. Now while we are actually integrating, it becomes very difficult for us to write e raised to integration 0.05 plus 0.01 s ds, right? It becomes very difficult to solve in that power wala part. So what we do is, we have another way of writing it. Instead of e raised to, we write exp, we write into exp and we put curly bracket. Exp curly bracket means e raised to. Okay, so e raised to can be written as exp curly bracket. Then I will say 0 point integration of 0 to 5, 0.05 plus 0.01 s ds, bracket close. So integration, if you're not very well versed in integration, you will have to use it a lot. Not in this particular course, we don't use it a lot in this particular course, but we use it a lot in later subjects. So statistics is totally dependent on differentiation and integration. If you're not very good at it, please revise it. Okay, So here we will get integration of a constant, so 0.05 s, then plus here I will have 0.01 s square by 2. Then I'll substitute the limits. And we are getting 375. We'll have 10,000 into e raised to 0.375. So again 10,000 into e raised to, so again shift ln 0.375. So you will be getting 14,549.914. You will be getting this much amount in 5 years time. Now if I say you want to know how much did you actually earn, here you know that you are earning at this rate, but your cash flow is what? You gave me 10,000 rupees at time 0 and I gave you 14,549.914 at time 5. You only know these two cash flows. For you, it does not matter at what rate am I giving interest. You just know that you invested 10,000 and you got this much, right? Calculation part. Now, which calculation part? The integration part. This is just integration of a constant. Integration of a constant would be constant into s. Okay, and integration of s would be s square by 2. Okay, so we have s square by 2, right? Integration of s would be s square by 2. Integration of x raised to n is what? We have x raised to n plus 1 by n plus 1. This becomes our integration of x raised to n. So integration of s would be s raised to 1 plus 1 by 1 plus 1. So this, and then we'll be just putting our limits. First we'll put upper limit minus our lower limit. Lower limit is already 0. So on the calculator, I said I will substitute 5. So I'll have 0.05 into 5. S ki jagah pe 5 and then plus 0.01 into 5 square, that was 25, divided by 2. Okay. Okay. So you know that you invested 10,000 rupees and you earned this much money, returned this much money. So how much did you earn as interest? So you will say my present value was 10,000. My future value was 14549.914. How much average rate of return that you earned? Rate of return is same as rate of interest. I will be using the term rate of return a lot because we'll see that later on what rate of return is, but rate of return is basically rate of interest. So we'll say average rate of interest earned in 5 years time. So in this investment time, how much average rate of interest did we actually earn? So we'll say our present value into 1 plus I raised to 5 should give me future value. So my I will be so this raised to 1 by 5. So raised to 1 divided by 5. Then minus 1. So we are getting 7.78841%. Now what does this mean? That instead of giving you a variable rate of interest or variable force of interest, if I said that if you invest for 5 years, I will give you this much rate of interest throughout the 5 years, it will be basically the same thing. Okay. So this is nothing but average rate of interest earned over this 5 years time. Similarly, you will find such questions. Now you can actually solve all the questions at the end of this chapter, because all our topics are over. So the chapter interest rate is now over. The only confusing part is a little bit of force of interest, but when you solve the sums, it becomes easier for us to understand. And you'll see here they have given us force of interest. We have two different force of interest. From time 0 to time 6 we have something else, and from time 6 to whatever time we are going to, we have another force of interest. For this, what we do is we split our integration. We'll have two different integrations. This interest rate is per annum, or we take it as 1 period. It will be per annum because that is our default period, right? So we would take it as per annum basis. Anyways, average rate of interest, they could ask you at any, you might say effective, they might ask you half yearly, they might ask you quarterly, whatever. But I am taking this as annual because that is the easiest one. Okay, and usually we are we are concerned with our annual rate. We are not concerned with our half yearly rate or something. So if we are talking about average, usually it is annual. Okay, so annually you are earning 7.788% per annum, but clearly you earned a little bit less in 1 year time. So if you would have invested only for 1 year, you would have got a less rate of interest. If you would have invested for 2 years, you will get less. If you invest for 3 years, you will get less, and so on. Okay. Now, when we have two different rates given, what will happen then? I will take an example here. Okay, so we have two different force of interest. Determine the expression of accumulation factor from time 0 to time t. Now we are only giving a general answer here. So they want accumulation factor from 0 to t. That would be our exp, and I'll say integration delta s ds. Okay, we will be going from 0 to t. Now t is nothing but greater than time 5. You can see here. So I can split this. Now for just an example, instead of t, I can write 8 because t is one of the value that is greater than 5. So I can write this as, first I will go from 0 to 5 delta s ds, plus I will go from 5 to 8 delta s ds. Now actual may 8, we took it as an example for t. So now I will replace 8 with t. I'll replace 8 with t, and this is what they have asked us. Okay. So now for 0 to 5, our delta s is 0.08. So this I will get 0.08 s from 0 to 5. And for this time 5 to t, we have this. Again I will integrate it. I will get 0.13 s minus 0.01 s square by 2, and we are going from 5 to t. Now this is the reason I do not use t that is given in our delta t. Why did I convert it into delta s? Because we, after integration, here t is a constant. Here s is a variable. So if I use the same values, it can get very confusing. That is why I use different values. My 5 and my s might look a little bit similar. Please don't get confused. Okay, this is s, this is 5. I try to make it different, but majority time it becomes same. My 5 I write like this, I try to write like this, but obviously it gets similar. This is also 5. So this would be nothing but 0.4, and here we'll have 0.13t minus 0.005 t square minus that 0.13 into 5. So that would be 6.5, I think. Yes. 6.5 minus, we'll have, I think, 0.25125.0125. So if we simplify all of this, simplify this, so we'll have exp 0.4 minus 0.65 plus 0.0125. 023. So this becomes our accumulation factor. Now, whenever I want to find t for, let's say, 8 years that we took as an example here, all I have to do is put t is equals to 8. If t is 10, if I invested from time 0 to time 10, all I have to do is put t is equals to 10 here. If my investment is for 12 years, from time 0 to time 12, I have to put 12 here, and I will get my accumulation factor. So this is how we do it when we have two different accumulation factor for two different times. Okay, we'll add them. That is how integration works, right? We can split the integration from between, and we can write them as addition of two different ranges. That is what we have done here. So we'll end this class for today, and your homework would be everything at the end of this chapter. I'll be giving you more homework as we go on throughout the week. I'll be communicating through Classroom app now. Okay, but I will not give you homework today. I'll give you in 2-3 days. So start solving these questions. I'll give you homework in 2-3 days in the Classroom app. Okay. I've uploaded assignments on our Classroom app, and I'll be giving you homework from those assignments directly. So this was our last demo lecture, and from now we will be only taking lectures in our through different links through Classroom app. So I'll be talking about that in our Classroom app later on. Okay, so next classes will be on next weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Okay. So would different delta equation come as a power of the same exponential? Yes, we can get that, but they will be for different times. Like here, this is nothing but e raised to two different integrations. So one was going from 0 to 5, the other was going from 5 to t, or 5 to 8, or 5 to 10, whatever time period we had. But we will not have two different deltas for the same time period. So they will always give you the range. Delta will always have the range. Even here you will see you have 0 to 6 and then greater than 6. Here you can see 0 to 3, 3 to 5, and then 5 to t. So it will always be in a different range for the same sum. Okay, here 0 to 10, 10 to 12, 12 to t, right? So we will always have delta t in different ranges, different delta t's for different ranges. So just split them in e raised to. You can write them in this form as well, because e raised to a plus b is equal to e raised to a into e raised to b. You can write it in this form as well, but it does not make any difference. Okay. So we'll end our class here, and in the next class I will go through this force of interest as a function of time again, because I know it becomes a little bit confusing. Try to solve it, and if you have problems you can ask me in the next lecture. Okay, next lecture will be on next Saturday.